Hotter. Doesn't want to turn on the AC yet. It's like living with my mother. It's gonna be 40s at the end of the week. I said, I don't care. We can layer up. Turn the air. Turn it on. Amanda's the queen of so heat to AC. Oh, yeah. It's AC. Not my mom. It'll be either of my mom and I'm sitting at 89 degrees.
It's 7 o'clock, so we will close the public hearing on the fiscal year 24 budget. And we will call the regular meeting to order. If you could please stand and join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jackie on the roll. Item C, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes? Need a motion to approve that?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, public input on non-agenda items. I didn't see anyone signed up to speak. Anybody here provide additional input? 3 hearings we had. Okay, we'll move on to item E, approval of minutes of past meetings.
There was one thing I noticed on the minutes way toward the bottom that it said we approved the transfer of Natalie Larson to first grade.
Mhm.
Should be to preschool, right? The transfer to preschool. Right at the bottom of your screen. Because she's in first, I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. Just.
Should have right there.
Any other changes? So entertain a motion to approve those with that change when you're ready. So
Second.
we have a motion and second to approve the minutes with the change noted. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item F, approval of financial items, financial reports, summary list of bills, and the SBO report.
Financial reports. Let me catch us up here. Special revenue report. The balances are there before you. Specific questions. I don't really have anything of note to report in that. The only thing I would like to report on in the annual treasurer's report is you'll see an increase in revenue and expenditures sort of out of the ordinary for this month. And that is because I had to make a flow-through entry for AEA expense and revenue. It's an annual entry. It just kind of depends on which month I get around to doing it. So that shows up in the revenues and the expenditures. So that's why there's a bit of a jump. It's 300 and something. This year is $391,438. It's an accounting requirement with the state, so that's why you see those sort of jumps in that reporting. And in the activities report, as you can see, our student construction fund sitting at the negative that we've been reporting on, a little bit more of an increase this month. I believe I have almost all the bills. I'm not sure. I have to check with Mr. Engel, but I'm pretty positive that that is the majority of the bills. And if there's any other questions on those reports, summary list of bills I did attach earlier today. Additional listing that wasn't on there from Friday, so let me know if you have any questions there as you look through those. And then in the school business official report, hopefully you had a chance to read and look over those documents that our audit extension was requested from our accounting firm, KRP, to the state, and the state did approve that. As you can see, I think I included the initial email that said due to staffing shortages. We've talked about that before, that it's being felt everywhere, even in our external auditors. So the extension does not have a date attached to it. So just as the next few weeks go by, I'll keep checking in with them, but I prefer to just sort of leave them alone and hope that they continue to finalize their audit. That's all I have, unless you have specific questions.
Do you know how many other districts that affected?
No, I don't. They didn't tell me and I didn't ask.
We're likely not the
I wouldn't even dare to guess, but I do know that they have other
Any questions for Jackie? Any of those items?
KRP. Does us, Sheldon, Whitenhall, and George Rock, and Rock Valley. I can check with that.
It's okay. Just curious. There's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial items as listed.
Second. Motion second to approve the financial items listed. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item G, administrative reports and discussion items. We'll start with recognition and congratulations to student, staff, and community. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, so in the agenda, you have 4 different groups to recognize for their achievement over the course of last month. 8th grade math B, Mr. Groen submitted this recognition for Egan Peterson, Caleb Quaker, Nick Mulder, Phil Shipper. Team finished 13th out of 38 teams at Northwestern. And Egan was a medalist, meaning he's in the top 20 of 138 students. So congratulations to the Math B team. Solo ensemble contest was held a little over a week ago. Many students from Central Lyon participating. I think we had 14 different schools here. So we want to thank everybody, students, staff, community members that volunteered to make that day a success. We had many students that received Division I and Division II ratings. I want to make special note of Anna Van Artsen. So each center, there were 6 centers. The judge in those particular centers picks one outstanding performer for the entire day. So in that particular center, whether it was vocal or instrumental, doesn't matter what individual or ensemble she was selected. So quite the honor for her, one of many that she's had this entire year. FFA officers are busy, have been busy all year round, but this weekend's banquet and award ceremony will happen on Saturday night. And so Mr. Rockhill wants to recognize the leaders of the organization and then also the seniors for all their service over the past 4 years. So he's listed the students involved in that. And then Mrs. Grafing submitted, I attached it here, all the recognition for the basketball team, which is, again, just tremendous. I love this picture from I think that was the first round game, maybe the second round. But lots to celebrate. Just so many different recognitions. So I would point that out, check it out. You can kind of read all those. And I would also highlight that 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to have Coach Grafing's calling it basketball rodeo. So anybody that wants to come out and celebrate the girls for their accomplishments this season, there'll be like a skills challenge, 3-point contest. And then anybody wants to get their picture taken with any of the team members, get an autograph, take a picture with a trophy, banner, welcome to join us on the 24th. So congratulations to the girls on a successful season. Mr. Harmon, did you want to fill everybody in on Mrs. Larson's recognition last week?
Yeah, I was notified that Natalie Larson was a recipient of the McDonald's Make Teacher of the Month for the month of March. So this is to send McDonald's, so they came here and we kind of surprised her. Her family, including her mother, showed up and we brought the first grade up to the library and gave her that presentation. Presentation, so yeah.
As far as community recognition, we want to thank the Wells family for purchasing a new AED. Our AEDs range anywhere from 15 years of age to now brand new. So we're cycling through and updating those. Jackie's family paid for our most recent one in memory of Jim. So thank you to them. It's about a $1,500 all-in expense, so we appreciate that. And then AB Insulation made a $1,000 donation to the industrial tech program to help defray costs with the building of the industrial tech house. They were the ones they're from Larchwood. They did the spray foam insulation, and they did it for the kids, and then donated $1,000 on top of their time and labor. So we really appreciate that. Anything else, principals?
I can add one thing there. This spring is the time where the Central Line Booster Club will formally accept requests from our different coaches throughout the district, both high school and middle school programs, to fund equipment and student athletic experiences outside of the scope of the activity budget. So we just met this past week, and the Booster Club has approved $22,000 coaching program expenses. So that group continues to support our activities. They do so throughout the year on many occasions, sometimes informally, and also during our state experiences, they supplement whether it be meals or the experience overall. So kudos to that group for getting together. Dan and I serve as kind of the district representatives on the Booster Club, and yeah, it's a fun experience. It's pretty neat that most of the things that we request get honored by that group through the fundraising campaign. So it's going to start as early as baseball, softball. They start some equipment in the hands of the kids. I want to thank them.
Keep buying t-shirts.
Yeah.
Baseball, softball t-shirts just came out, so buy in bulk.
Let's celebrate this. All right, we'll move on to item 2, staff presentation, with the first one being from the calendar committee. Mr. Short, the introductions.
You bet. We've got 3 members of our calendar committee present tonight: Melissa Lockheed, Lenny Ditzworth, and Jessica Harmon. Principals sit on that as well. We met multiple times over the past couple months, kind of dug into the calendar, kind of tried to give you a description of the calendar and its particulars. And then you got a copy of the calendar itself. Thank Melissa specifically. She found an error in couple errors in my formulas, so appreciate her doing that. Mr. Harmon did the same thing. So 191 and a half contract days for teachers, 178 student days with 1,148 and a half student hours. So very, very similar to this year. The big difference is how we're going to plan to tackle any snow makeup days. So we built in days, and then once we get to the third no school day due to any reason, then we'd start using our built-in snow makeup days, school closure days. So Melissa, Lenny, Jess, anything you guys want to add about the calendar?
Teachers like it. Teachers like it. Parents will like it. Just ones I've talked to, parents seem to like the built-in days because they want to be out of here before, Memorial Day. And then it's, if we don't use them, make sure we have absolutely no snow days and they can take them as a vacation day.
Remind me, in previous years, have we just tacked them on yet?
Yes.
So we haven't, this will be the first time. Well, is that right, that we built in snow days?
First time since I've been here.
Can expect based off
Our
through
experience.
this year.
Again, like Lenny alluded to, if we don't have snow days, really they extend our breaks. So Christmas break, Friday before, and then the Tuesday after are our first two makeup days. And then we have one in basically February, March, and April. And if we need them, we'll use them. The other thing that's kind of working its way through the legislature is e-learning days. We know that we did a couple of those this year. Didn't count them as student hours, but all indications are that that's going to be law, that we will be able to count up to 5 e-learning days.
That won't be for next year. Like, it
Will
won't
be.
be, oh, it will be. Okay.
Yep, so that, if you look at the calendar itself.
Yeah.
We're gonna, if we need e-learning days, we would start on the 9th, quote unquote, no school day with e-learning. Again, the feedback from staff is face-to-face, in-person instruction's the best, but it's an option for us if we get to a point that we were similar to this year. And then beyond the 14th and beyond, we'd come back to you with recommendations for how we would make those up. Hopefully, we don't want to experience that again next year, but if we need to on that 14th and beyond, we can make adjustments.
Questions or comments for Mr. Jordan, calendar committee?
Is that presented, so like on the calendar then, like when parents see the calendar, it will say like possible makeup day or,
Yep, down here in this bottom corner.
but
And-
parents don't get this, right?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they do get this,
Yep,
okay.
it's in the
Okay.
Lyon tracks that goes out in the summer. It's on the school's website.
Okay.
We'll publish it. If approved tonight, we'll publish it tomorrow, put it on our social media.
Want comments from the board now, or when we get to that point?
I think if you got questions for the committee, you can ask them now, or you can wait until the action item. It's up to you.
I think you can ask him now.
So my question is, how did we get to a point of automatically forgiving the first 2 snow days?
Student days?
Yes. So when we started this, somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago, when we became an hour school, we were given the option by the state to become an hour school. So they gave us more flexibility in making up days or not making up days. The first time we did that, we had the choice of either coming back and making up 1 or 2 days after Memorial Day, which will be questionable value of educational days. I get it. So it was the board's prerogative at that point to forgive those 2 days. Since then, it seems like it's almost become an entitlement that we're automatically going to not make up those 2 days.
Mhm.
I don't understand why we have decided that. I don't agree with not just automatically those 2 days. If we get to the end of the year and we have another situation where we either come back after Memorial Day or don't come back after Memorial Day, giving the board that option and having that be a board prerogative, I believe, is appropriate.
Mhm.
I don't believe it's appropriate to just automatically say the first 2 days we're not going to make up.
So our conversation was, we built the calendar basically with the same amount of student days, 178 that we had this year. We didn't count the parent-teacher conference days like we have in the past. So really, it's 180 days like it has been in the past. So that's why, really our first makeup day for teachers is the 24th of May, would essentially turn into a checkout day. Last day, teachers could go through those conversations with their principals. In the past, we haven't made up those first 2 days because of the educational value for 2 days after Memorial Day. So we've always talked about, at least since I've been here, we wanted to have more than just 2 days after the holiday. And we felt like 3 or 4 days was a legitimate ask of families, knowing that they preferred to be done when we've done this survey to the entire community before Memorial Day if possible and just start summer. And so staff have come back after Memorial Day without kids in the past. So that's how we kind of arrived at those 2 days in the past. The board wants to do something different, you guys can amend what's here. Committee members, I don't know if you got any other feedback from the staff perspective.
I don't know, since I've been here for 10+ years, they've always, the first 2 days were always excused for students, but staff, we had to make them up. And it just was, I guess, since even Xander who graduated last year, it seems like it's been 18 years. We've never had to make up the first 2. I didn't know that was not an option, honestly, as a parent or even a teacher. I always thought the first 2 days, the board always forgave for the kids, but as a staff member, we had to make.
I don't recall that until we became an hour school that was ever an option, because you had to have kids in school X number of days. So it didn't matter if you went till June 15th, you had to have X number of days. When we went to an hour school, which was approximately 5 or 6 years ago, that gave us the flexibility to not have to be bound to a number of days, but we had the ability to, as long as we met the minimum number of hours, we had the ability to forgive those days. Again, the first time we did that, that was asked of the board to do that, because it would have meant coming back for 2 days after.
And does the state requires how many hours again for our students to attend school?
1,080,
We go 1,000,
almost 50, 1,150.
so we already go 70 hours,
About 12 days
12
longer.
days longer than,
minimum.
yes, than we are required to.
My argument to that would be is every day kids aren't in class is a day they're not learning. So every day we can have them in class up to that 178 days, that's another day of learning. It helps us fulfill our mission of being exceptional school. Exceptional education.
I think the equation changes a little bit, right? If we're building in snow days, then that 2 days is kind of like, well, what? I'm not sure what the intent of that is, right? Because we used to not have the snow days built in, so then we were just tacking them on, and like Mr. Dorth said, if we got to the end, then generally it was thought about as the board, if we had to, depending on how many days we were gonna have, if it was only 2 or 3, wherever it ended up, we would consider waiving those days, which, what have we done that once? Is that only one time we did that?
Since I've been here, COVID was my first year.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, we went to the Friday after Memorial Day. And then this year will be at the Friday after Memorial Day. And then we've used flexible PD for staff or the e-learning days this year. So this would be the first time where, yes, we would be forgiving 2 days off the top for students. And staff obviously would be, like it says here, in person on the 24th. I'd say the reason we went with the second day as a flexible PD day is that was really positive feedback from our staff. many staff members are working on that snow day, whether they're coming into the building, doing work in their classrooms, or they're working from home on various projects. So that's why we built it the way we built it this year. And like I said, if the board, once we get to the new business item, wants to amend it and do something different, that's your prerogative.
Really is the concern is just from the calendar committee is that we just don't want to come back. We want to do what we can to not have to come back the week of the 27th.
Okay.
So even if we said, well, we're just not going to give we're not going to forgive the first 2 days, but we move no school day number 1 just becomes makeup day number 1.
Mhm.
That's not a huge impact, right?
Correct. So staff will probably
I was gonna say staff will probably
have one day after Memorial Day then, or 2 days, depending upon, or 1 day, excuse me, if we have 2 beyond.
Staff still has to see how many days regardless of when they are.
Correct, but we're building in 1 flexible day. And if we're not gonna make up, if we're gonna mandate that kids are making up that day, the 24th is that first day that we were gonna have a no student contact day. It's gonna be a staff day. And then the next 5 after that would be in-person student days. And then e-learning after that.
Percolate on just a little bit till we get to new business. More questions, comments?
Do you have any more questions for the committee? Otherwise, thanks guys for coming. Appreciate the feedback and your service to the committee.
I'm going back to.
Okay, see you.
Okay, we will move on to B under the staff presentation, the math curriculum pilot team.
So Mrs. Baker and Mr. Wright are here as our leaders of their respective buildings and the members of the math team. Last 2 years, we've studied, we went to national conferences, we've had conversations with other schools, and we've come to our conclusion and our recommendation for adopting illustrative math at the elementary level and Savas or revision math at the secondary. So Mrs. Baker and Mr. Wright are here to kind of talk about the process. Any questions you have about the curriculums? It's a little different than our 2 previous adoptions, literacy and science, where we've had kind of the same curriculum throughout. So we got 2 different ones. Not necessarily any different than we've got Go Math in the elementary right now, and then we've got the Pearson Envision product in the secondary. So anything you want to add, Mr. Wright, Mrs. Baker?
No, I think you started off right. We've been working on it. Chris and Mike and some other of the team went to the national conference to see what they could learn. I wasn't able to go, but I've been going to my local meetings. I've been reading, doing the research the other ways, talking to different schools. Really working closely with the AEA to try to help figure out what's best for our students. And through that, we've been doing a lot of work already with our special ed areas with the numeracy and how important that is for our students. And so following that path, it led us to the illustrative math. 4th grade teachers dove into it a little bit last year because the fraction work with Go Math was something that they struggled with getting, so they were using other outside resources. So while we were looking at the curriculum, I helped them work through those at the end of last year. Fourth grade continued to pilot that, which actually the illustrative math puts that at the beginning of the year versus in the middle. So it worked out perfect. They already felt comfortable with that curriculum, so when they started off with that this fall, it worked really well for them. Kindergarten also piloted. It was more difficult for the kindergarten team with the illustrative math and with the Envision, mostly because I wasn't able to support them as much this year like I could fourth grade last year. And the Savas, the Envision kind of worked out when it was basketball season, and so as they were piloting it, they had lots of days off. Fourth grade also piloted the Envisions, moving from the 3 curriculums, led to some challenges in itself, but they worked through it. But overall, illustrative math really focuses on building in the math routines at the beginning of the class, so it's kind of like that ground zero, level zero. Everybody can enter in no matter what your math background, and you learn from each other, you learn from conversations, and it allows all students to be a part of that. And then if students need to leave for further instruction at their level, they can do so. It really focuses on conversation and the student thinking and the student problem solving. So it is going to be a transition because it's more about student directed learning, with the teacher being more of the facilitator rather than just the giver of the information. Having them really build a deeper knowledge of it. And that's why we went with that one. The Envision for the elementary level, there's just a lot of problems on a lot of pages. That gets overwhelming. So the illustrative math is more about maybe fewer problems, but better problems, and really focusing and going deep in those. So that's why we went that way. But you have, other levels different.
Right, it is, and I think some of that lends to just the differences in what you're working with. Working with first graders is a lot different than working with juniors in high school. Yes, we're teaching math, but we got some different goals in the sense of what we're trying to attack. Mike and I went to the NCTM conference. As we sat at tables, different things we went to, we're always at, what do you use for a math series? Do you like it? And everybody was kind of in our same boat. We were surprised. We were waiting for that one person to say, here's the curriculum, go with it. We love it, it's great. And all of them were like, well, we use this, it's okay. Or, well, some of us like it, some of us don't. We walked out of there, and just from that standpoint, we're like, that's getting frustrating. We're not, and a lot of them were doing what we were doing. They were there to talk to people to find out which direction to go. We did get to talk to a lot of the vendors. That was kind of fun, and gave us a lot of good information. Got to look at a lot of different series from that standpoint. And a few of them we looked at and said, there's just nothing to it. So again, we came down with talking with staff. It really came down. We were looking at IM and Envision. Some of that goes back to the ed reports, making sure their scores were good, everything's aligned. There's a few that we looked at where on ed reports it wasn't. There were some question marks. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. We thought, okay, if we're going to do this, let's make sure the curriculum is aligned properly and we're doing what we're supposed to do. So that kind of led us to these 2 pieces as well. As we've piloted, and one of the things we like, we think it's a good mix between some traditional, which a lot of us are kind of used to teaching, but it offers that problem-based learning kind of in each lesson if we want to go with that. Some are better than others, so a couple of them I did during my pilot, and a couple of them I'm like, the kids aren't going to be interested, it's not very good. So we moved in a little more quickly, but at least at the high school level, and I know some of the middle school as well, all of our lessons are designed over 2 days. So here's everything. And a lot of times right now, I take the lessons and I split it myself when I see fit. Now it's basically, that pacing is done for me. And as I piloted, what I like is we get through a little bit more material that first day, and that second day allowed enough time. Kids got into groups, they worked on their assignment. We tested out Math Excel, which is on the computer. And I've really been kind of hesitant on that. I'm very pencil, paper, traditional, show me your work, that type. Ironically, because of how precise you had to be on your answers, if you were off a tenth, your answer wasn't correct. So on certain things, they're very fussy about it. So kids were at times writing more work down to use the computer than they were on a normal lesson. So there's some things there that we like. Had some good conversations. The other thing we liked with the Math Excel is it gives them immediate feedback. If they type it in and it's wrong, it tells them. It's like, try again. You can look at a problem, it has some supports with it. You know, so you can go in and view an example like the one you're doing, and you can kind of go through and you're like, oh, that's the step I'm missing. So kids have a support there as well. And I think of a year like this year with the success of all of our programs, it seems like everything's going to state while they miss school. That it's an extra support for them as they're doing their assignment where, okay, I don't have to go in and ask a question to one of my math teachers. I can kind of view an example. I can help figure, you know, there's some problem solving there too. Obviously, we'd welcome them to come in, but if it can help them out, that'd be great. So there's some things we're finding out as we've piloted, and it'll be fun as we start putting things together just to see how it all goes. But yeah, I'm excited about it. It's supposed to communicate well with Canvas, so that's good. And yeah, we're just excited. We like some of the different orders that they've changed things around in compared to our old books. There's a few contacts that both Mike and I have been emailing of schools that use it, and they really enjoyed it. I think their kids are doing well. So yeah, we're happy and should be good.
So later on in the business, I had hoped to have the full quote for both programs. When we got those quotes back, they were higher than what we want to pay for this. So Mr. Wright and I are working with Savas and Vision to get it dialed in to a budget that we're more comfortable with. Similarly, Mrs. Baker and I and Mr. Harmon are doing the same thing for IM. So what you'll see in the new business tonight is just one approval for the PD for illustrative math. So in order to book our June 5 and June 6, we need the board's approval to move forward. And then in May, we'll bring back the total student textbooks, workbooks, teacher materials, online access, the full quote for both programs. So tonight, it's the only thing in the new business is the $23,000 for IMPD, and that's for all next year. Not only June 5 and June 6, but a day before the school year starts, October 9th, and then ongoing access to their trainers throughout the course of the year. So whether it's our Wednesday teacher collaboration, $23,000 seems like a lot of money, but there's a lot of support that comes along with it.
Chris, is there any disconnects between the two? I mean, or does either one of the two offer a K through 12 solution?
They both do. It's more about comfort level and where we think what's going to benefit each level of student, and then where's that transition. One of the things from our standpoint at the high school level, we're a little concerned with some of the IM part is timing on lessons. We have 42-minute class periods, so we don't have to rush some things. But again, that's just kind of our comfort level of where we're at. Again, looking at ed reports and seeing they're they're good all the way through every level, whatever. We shouldn't have any gaps because everything is getting covered at the level that's supposed to be done.
That was kind of my question. Are we gonna build in gaps or build in any disconnects between the two different curriculums? If we have one in the elementary and one in the high school. So you're gonna go from here and then you go, oh, now I need to learn math a different way when I go to the different curriculum.
Maybe a little, but we've been doing that with Go Math and Pearson anyway. And at some point, there has to be a little bit of a transition just because of the way that as they continue on and even if they graduate from here, what are they gonna see at that next level if they get to college, stuff like that? Because there aren't many people that are gonna run their college class the way that the IM series works. Some of them, some people I've talked to in the AP reading that teach college, they're kind of creeping into it, but I think a lot of that level is, let me come in, I'm gonna go through it and go. So, there might be a little bit of transition as we go from fourth to fifth. We're gonna have to work through that, but again, I think they'll be fine as they move in. I don't think it'll be drastically different. Kyler and the fourth grade teachers will have to do some discussions. Mr. Dorff and I talked about that. More so of, okay, how are you attacking this type of topic compared to what it is in my book? And we may do some connections there. Sure. But we thought that might be an easier transition and fit than anything else, so.
One thing we did talk about
Go ahead.
is, do we want Kyler with 1 foot in the illustrative math and 1 foot in the Envision, the 2 textbook series? And while there's merit in that, because he would be the one that would be that transition person, ultimately at the end of the day, like Chris said, K through 4 has 60 minutes for math instruction. Starting in 5th grade, they've got an 8-period day, and it goes down to the 40-minute. And that's where the Envision is really designed for more of a 40-minute class period. Plus, if we had Kyler in both series, it'd be 2 different sets of professional learning. He'd have to have the IM professional learning, and he'd have to have the Envision professional learning. So instead of trying to split him between both and not doing either one justice, we felt that that was the best place to make that transition, was from 4th grade to 5th grade.
And I was gonna say, I don't think it's the math that will be different because you're still teaching math. What I'm hoping out of IM is that we're going to build a really deep understanding and relationship of numbers and how they work together. And in that, the students are learning from each other, just like we do when we go to PE. We're learning, or PD, we're learning from each other. As we talk, we're learning from each other and giving them more vocabulary, more understanding that way. So then when they move on, they're in a better place to do that higher level thinking that has to happen.
Well, that lends into as well. We have some of that same problem-based learning built in at the beginning, and then we have our next chunk. And I mean, there's things in there that are similar flow-wise if we want to run it that way. Like I said, it may not be every day, but we have some of that same opportunity. So again, in our conversations with 5th grade, 4th grade, kind of that gap, we can make some transition stuff. I think it'll go well.
Even through our conversations, we said, no matter what curriculum we pick out, it's going to be the instruction that really matters. And that's where the PD it comes into play, is making sure we have that in place.
So all of our, again, TK through 4th grade teachers, they're teaching 4 different core subjects each day. Starting with Kyler and all the way through Chris, they're teaching math. They have all day starting in 5th grade to plan the math instruction. Whereas Sarah Groen in 4th grade, she's got to plan math instruction, literacy instruction, science instruction, social studies instruction. And so
that also is a big factor, the time factor. And with Mrs. Baker going back into that instructional coaching role around math specifically next year, really excited about the support she's going to be able to provide kindergarten through fourth grade teachers. And then the Wednesday collaboration is going to be the most important for our 5th through 12th grade math teachers, getting on the same page with one another. And it might be Tyler that has to go back and forth, so he has those collaborative conversations with the fourth grade team, so he knows what that instruction looks like, the kind of the deeper conversations versus more teacher-directed instruction that starts in 5th grade.
How many years of PD are you looking at for both purchases? Continuous, couple years?
2 years. Yep. Years. So again, depending upon our experience with the PD from illustrative math next year, if it's a good experience, we can continue. We feel like we get more value from our own grade level conversations, maybe the AEA and our local collaboration, rather than spending $23,000 on an outside expert coming in. We'll have that recommendation next year at this time for PD.
You mentioned something about negotiating the whole package here. You got some.
Yep.
My only feedback, let's make sure we don't negotiate out things that are beneficial to staff, students, et cetera.
Exactly. You know, the Math XL is that prime example at that secondary level. Chris hasn't used that before, but they found it to be valuable during the pilot, so that's something that we definitely want. You know, you see it in the agenda here a little bit. If we can get the foundation to help us with that, be something we're going to ask for. If the foundation doesn't want to pay for that, then we'll pay for it ourselves. Similarly, at IM, the illustrative math, all the manipulatives that elementary kids use, the tactile things that they're using, similar type of thing. The original quote has it built in for every teacher gets a kit, so they don't have to make copies. They don't have to go buy things at Walmart or wherever. Similarly, we want to ask for that from the foundation first. If the foundation doesn't want to do that, then the district will provide that. So that's what we're really trying to fine tune. You know, the conversation Chris and I have had is how many physical textbooks do we need? You know, do we need one for every kid? Or do we need a classroom set? Or is it even less than a classroom set? At the elementary level, there's workbooks for that illustrative math. Does every kid need a workbook? Do we just need to do the workbooks for 1 year and see how much of the workbook they actually use? So those are the things that we're going back and forth with these textbook providers about what's appropriate, what do we really need versus what do we want. We want to be budget conscious, but like you said, the goal is to make sure the teachers are confident with what they have, that they can deliver the lessons in a meaningful manner.
Anything else on the topic of team? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to principal reports. Mr. Harmon, start with you.
So I included multiple items there. The first one was the spring parent teacher conferences. It was unique this year that we had rescheduled night to Monday night, and that gave us some issues with our parents wanting to attend. Same time from a Thursday to a Monday, but it didn't work. What we did was we tried phone call conferences. If we couldn't get through them, then we'd send the information home, and they still have it for that. And we'll follow up toward the end of the year. But you can see our data there for that, which is always important to take a look at. Very high conference rates for the elementary. Second part there, I just wanted to update our numbers. As you can see, the conferences have big input on the early elementary numbers, as that kindergarten numbers and all the way up to 54. Registered, ready to go for next year. Very strong numbers. With the next part with like Mrs. Weiler. I just talked about that. Okay, with those numbers, you can see the discussion from the school to the school board is that we recommend 2 different sections for that, and go back to our transfer that we talked about in February, I believe. Mrs. Weiler looking at transferring from her current special ed position to a TK 3 days a week, and then she can still help out with special ed those other 2 days. Our special ed numbers are not shrinking. Our preschool teachers aren't fixing all those problems yet, so, but, so, yeah, our numbers are really strong for next year, so that's good to see, but at the same time, we do have some needs down in that elementary that are going to have to be addressed as we go through each year, so. Okay, and then we have our visit day on the 28th of April, just to get that out there, so. Any questions for Mr. Harmon? Would be encouraging with Mrs. Jones and there, Mrs. Weiler. I don't think we'd have the revolving door we've had with our TK position, which is something that has been a question of how we can solve that.
Okay. Mr. Newman.
One of the things we're working at, more specifically at the secondary level, it actually encompasses the entire district, is the district career and academic plan that gets submitted to the state annually. So what that is, as you can see, it kind of included a couple different things after a meeting that Mr. Jordan, Mrs. Harmon, and myself had with Mark Shea of the AAA, who also works with Jordan Manning in the Future Ready Department. So basically, we identify stakeholders amongst the community and in the district, basically kind of checks and balances, to check our scope and sequence of the work-based learning opportunities we provide and other career exploration experiences we give our students. You can see a list of people that are invited to be a stakeholder in this particular plan and contribute. So it's not only administrators, counselors, but it's a lot with our CTE staff, which is the north end of the building. That's your industrial tech, and tax, ag, and business. But we got our general ed staff as well as our elementary staff. Local workforce partners, and that's just not folks that are helping the house or some of the, sometimes that's speakers that come into the classroom and talk about financial assistance or investing. It's across the board. It's people that can come in and give us their expertise and give students some glimpses into the real world. It's also those people that supervise work study and work placement positions for our students. So it's a lot of people to help put this plan together to ensure that we're not only doing things for our students, give them insight into what's locally available for them after high school, but also what's available for them statewide, globally, essentially after high school. So a couple of things that we work on, Jessica does a lot with our 4-year plan and kind of doing interest inventories and things to make sure students are on the right path, starting as early as 7th or 8th grade. So there's not a lot of, I don't want to say wasted classes, but we kind of streamline them into places where we know they're passionate about what might be a post-secondary opportunity for them or a career in the future. So a lot of things, FAFSA completion and how that completion percentage kind of plays out when it comes to students enrolling in post-secondary and completing post-secondary schooling. There's different components here, and I didn't go into great detail, but you can see all the different categories we have to fill out as a district and check boxes, but also include particulars. Like I said, it goes down to 8th grade, and it talks about, when are you first introducing them to resume building? You give them opportunities to go out and take a tour of DGR, organizations in the community. What internships, what work placements, what future ideas do you have to expose kids to real world opportunities? So it's a lot of information. It's a lengthy document that takes quite a bit of time to complete. Fortunately, we can kind of, transition from one year to the next, but we're always looking at it. So it takes us quite a bit of time to get all these people together and to get input from everybody. But that's kind of what we're working on this time of year. It's much like everything else, we have standards and benchmarks we must hit. It does get reviewed by the state. They grade us on kind of the experiences and we tend to score very high. Mark Shea, it's always great to bring Mark in because he's nothing but complimentary of what we do in the district. Very few districts of our size and our size of the community have as many opportunities for kids to go out and experience what it's like to work, what it's like to communicate with people in the job field. And then there's not a lot of wasted time from when they leave our doors to where they're going next. Not a lot of kids going out, which is nice. So we're going to continue to capitalize on that, but we started a lot of this work last week, and it's going to continue for a couple of weeks.
So next month, month of May, we'll give you the final finished product. And we're always looking to expand this, so I'd say I'm really excited about Sarah DeVries coming on board in the business department, and we're actually, was it tomorrow or Thursday, we're meeting with her to actually start working on a service learning grant that's actually tied to work-based learning. And Sarah, doing that not only with our at-risk kids, but any of our gen ed kids as well. So excited to have her on board. And then you're going to the career fair with the eighth graders tomorrow.
So I presented at the junior day when it's here locally, and that's every other year. Eighth graders too, they go to NCC every year. That's always a wonderful activity. They get a lot of information.
Any questions from Mr. Engelmann? Okay, move on to item number 4, superintendent report. Mr. North?
Yeah, just again, really quickly here, there is a new business item for the board to consider. The industrial tech house. How quickly you want to move on that. You know, it's my recommendation that we set a public hearing. I wouldn't go any lower than 129.5. You know, that's roughly $2,000 less than our inputs right now. But I think that would, much like when you're buying a car or buying a house, that psychology comes into play when it's right under that 130 mark. So I've been in contact with both Seaport of Fultz and Frontier Real Estate. So both of those entities are going to help us market the house between now and whenever the board sets the public hearing date. We're going to continue to upload some interviews with kids, Mr. Engel, just a new walkthrough of the industrial tech house to try to continue to market it. And then we've got a list of 10 interested parties, whether it's Mr. Engel or myself, that we've been talking to since we didn't have a bid last month. So continuing to try to get those people to the meeting to make a bid. And hopefully we have a true auction. So when I wrote this last week, kind of middle of the week, we had 7 interested parties. We're up to 10. Get excited about that. Didn't know if anybody had any questions.
Suppose you thought to do it the same way of starting out with sealed bids?
Yep.
I think we'll do it.
Yep.
I've been brushing up on my auctioneering skills. So. Ready to go.
I am glad we're going to have that video. Next item there is update on the bus barn FFA plot. Unfortunately, Steve Avery was in trial on Thursday and Friday of last week, so he was unable to get a written opinion for us on the kind of steps to this process. But when I talked to him, whether it's parceling the current bus barn property or it's the FFA land swap, it starts with just a good survey and what's called a meets and bounds description. So if indeed we're taking the bus barn property and dividing it into a couple different parcels, we need to have that legal description. And DGR can do that for us. They've really already done that at the FFA land. Micah has had that completed already. He's had it done for over a year. So that's kind of expedited at the FFA property. We're going to have some work to do over at the bus barn if that's the route that we want to go. So step 1, like I said, get DGR involved. Step 2, once we have that meets and bounds description, then Steve Avery can draft the public notices with all of the legal descriptions involved with that. And then the board can move as quickly or as slowly as it wants to. It's that same minimum 10-day public notice, no more than 20 days in advance. And then we can have a similar type of sealed bid, highest bidder gets it, or you can use the same process that we're using for the industrial tech house, where it could be a live auction if you want to do that. So it's up to you what you want to do.
But realistically, we probably won't get back to this stuff for a while.
Correct. Because
If the FFA property works out for the new bus barn. we'll
Yeah, are we doing
maintain
that
it.
part first?
Yep, so
Okay.
Matt,
I
so
think so.
Yep, so
Okay.
Matt Basie is already started to study Granted, we don't have a contract of services for that yet. Matt unfortunately had COVID over the course of the last 2 weeks. So he's been quarantined at home, actually not feeling very well at all. So he's been in touch with Gary Kurth. He's been in touch with Micah about the property, but we're gonna need a soils test, and he's gonna need to study really the utilities out there. Sewer, water, electrical as the three big ones. And then he can bring us back a report, work closely with the Buildings and Grounds Committee again to make sure that all the details are taken care of. And then we can make that report back to the board about the feasibility at that FFA. Okay,
Just moving the bus bar.
it shouldn't. Yep.
It'll take part of the south part of the pasture, right? And swap it over
Swap it
to
to
the west of where the building is now.
We're gaining actually with the swap, like an acre and a half.
It's like 1 acre now or something.
Yep.
2.5.
Yep. So we're gonna have some additional, that's where he's gotta do a study and say, okay, this is exactly where a bus barn would sit on there in its proximity to the FFA, the kind of new FFA land.
One of the things that I had mentioned in the past meeting was that there was a little bit of hesitancy based on what happened a few years ago, being that that sliver piece that would be part of the swap is in city limits, but dove into it a little further, and that parcel is in city limits, but it's zoned agricultural. So I think we can still have livestock there. Again, I just don't recall what the concerns were the night I took the oath back in the day.
If I remember right, that was exactly the concern about having livestock within, and technically in city limits.
And I think there was some mention perhaps of if the zoning requirements were ever changed, but we'll rely on Avery for that.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable with it being than I did last time. So.
Yeah, and I'm kind of circling back to your question. When Matt Basie is here with the Buildings and Grounds, we're gonna include Josh in that conversation, so Josh can say, this is what we're doing right now, this is a potential thing that we wanna make sure that we're able to do in the future. So he's a part of that conversation, has a seat at the table as we go through this study.
As part of the bus farm property and potentially selling it, I'm assuming we would have, at some point, have a valuation done on it.
Appraisal.
Regardless of how we parcel it out.
Yep. And I can talk to both Dave Foltz and Lisa Duran about that process for commercial property. Okay. I've been unable to meet with the personnel committee. I know that we wanted to have that conversation about superintendent evaluation and what we want that to look like for this year's kind of end of year. We also need, as a personnel committee, need to get together and talk about support staff salaries, leadership, administrative salaries as well. So we'll try to get something scheduled either this week or next week so we can get going on those things, because both of those I want to bring back for the board in May as well. So that's my updates. Board committees kind of connecting to those reports. Like I've already said, Finance Committee, we met last week. Jackie alluded to it in her report. We're still waiting on the last year's fiscal year 22 audit. We did have a nice conversation about this year's budget, all the documents that were in the public hearing that's in the new business. Jackie will review kind of her recommendation and memo. But Gary and Dave and Jackie and I met. It was a good conversation. Personnel committee, like I said, whether before we leave tonight or over the course of the next day or so, we'll find a date to meet, to talk about all those things. And then once Matt can get me a couple days for a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, I think we want to meet and have that conversation sooner rather than later. Knowing that we also need to meet as a Buildings and Grounds with Gary Kurth and make sure that we're ready to go now that the snow has melted. And summer is upon us with the 80-degree weather that feels like in here right now. So I'll be sending out a meeting notice on that. Policy committee. I did not do any of the primer updates throughout the course of the year, so there's a lot of policies that I need to sift through. And then they're not pertaining to just the 400 series, it's 100 through 900. So once I get an opportunity to really dig into those, if there's some changes, which I know there are some, especially when it comes to like the school safety grant, there's certain policies that we got to update to be able to even qualify for it. So once I've had an opportunity to do that, we're going to need to sit down and go through that. So like I said there, maybe you identified a day already for the week of 17th through the 21st. Then Carrie's gone, but Carrie's our representative to the foundation. We've been kind of working with Jeff Cruz, who's also on the foundation board, about some recommendations for the big project, as the foundation calls it. So the first kind of idea is, as we look at e-learning, our experience this year, and then projecting forward to the future, one of the things we heard from our elementary staff was our computers are on mobile carts in their classrooms. So when we send them home with kids, they just go directly in their backpack. And they don't have chargers. So you remember when we had the back-to-back snow days, we were unable to do the e-learning for our elementary kids because the chargers or the computers lost their charge. So that's the $27,000 request there, idea number one. Second one I alluded to when Chris and Stephanie were talking about the different components to the math program. And then just today, I got our fine arts wall to design in. But if you remember out in the lobby, we have the academic wall. So they have kind of created a mock-up here of a performing arts wall. So it would span from, this is the opening to the door to the auditorium to the janitorial closet. So that's just kind of what it looks like in that space rendered. And then this is maybe a little bit better picture here of what it would look like from left to right. So we would recognize, we would have a space for kind of like a playbill. This is the upcoming production on the left. The middle section here is what's shown this particular year for the actual productions. And then over here is our all-state recognition, choir, band, jazz choir, large group, and individual speech. So some pretty neat things that recognize our co-curricular programs in the fine arts specifically. So this is estimated at $11,000. The foundation paid for the academic wall is about $5,500. So this is about twice the size on the opposite side of the commons. So pretty neat. If the foundation doesn't do it, I want to do this regardless, because I just think it's a good recognition of those programs in the fine arts and performing arts. So whether it's casino dollars or it's PEPSA budget, just a nice upgrade for the commons. Granted, Mr. Town right now, that's kind of his gallery walk of all the student art, but we'll find another spot for all of the things that our 7th through 12th grade art students do.
Did the foundation have a target If they wanted to spend,
I was
open to ideas.
Usually it's $10,000 since I've been here, but like Foundation did this room and this was a bigger, I think it was like,
For several years, right?
so. I know they're meeting tomorrow over the lunch hour.
Then just back to the policy committee.
Yep.
Which I think is Amy. How much time are you gonna need?
Say, hopefully no more than an hour.
And the personnel committee one, you didn't want to go through the attachment and everything. I said,
I certainly can if you guys want me to.
no, that's fine. I felt like we kind of skipped over, but we didn't really, I know we
That's
didn't
just a
meet, so
conversation,
that's what.
conversation for a personnel committee.
Yeah, that's, fine.
You know,
Yeah.
I think you guys had asked for that turnover savings. Our hiring process has got a little bit further down, and so I wanted to
Yeah.
provide that to you, and that's what you have as far as the detail.
sounds good.
Ready to move on to old business?
Yep.
Okay, so before I think we're ready to discuss this one, so we need to take it from the table. That would be Kelly Weiler's transfer request, so if I can get a motion, second to take that issue from the table.
Make a motion to take that out the table.
Awesome.
Motion and second to take off the table the Kelly Weiler's transfer request. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Jorth?
Yes, so, like Mr. Harmon alluded to, our projection for transitional kindergarten next year is 18 students. Same amount of kids that we had this year, where we had 2 sections. You know, our goal historically has been small class sizes with TK, and differentiating it from preschool, it's 3 full days. But differentiating it from kindergarten, it's 3 instead of 5 days. So we're keeping the same structure, keeping the same small class sizes. The big difference is Mrs. Weiler transferring into that while maintaining her kind of full-time teaching position. So I pulled that up when we were kind of going through the agenda. We'll pull it up again. Mr. Harmon and I met and really built the schedule. Is it in here, Mr. Harmon? Yep. So, again, Mrs. Weiler's schedule, she would have scheduled very similar to what Mrs. Baker had, but during her literacy block, she would have the students with IEPs in TK and kindergarten. And she would be able to provide that specially designed instruction during her every day, all 5 days of the week. For literacy, math, and then in our afternoon time, she would also have special ed time with TK and kindergarten kids. On the 2 days wherein she doesn't have her TK classroom, she would be available for push-in during that literacy and math block in the mornings, and then maintaining her roster of kindergarten kids, knowing that really our first grade is going to be large next year. So if she's pushing into a classroom, having her available to first grade teachers as a second adult in those classrooms around literacy and math, while at the same time providing special education support for the kindergarten kids that are there every day, would be new for us, doing it in this model. But I think this schedule, Mrs. Weiler's expertise, support from not only Mrs. Baker when it comes to math, but also Krista Sproke and Michelle Van Wy. It's a model that we would like to at least try next year to see. Anything to add, Mr. Harmon?
It gives us flexibility to address the needs and yet addresses the growing concern that we have, especially from the board, and gives some ideas for that.
So she would transfer from a full-time special ed position, correct? What grades does she serve now?
She serves TK through first grade. So we would, our proposal is we would hire back a full-time special ed teacher at that early elementary level that would work really first grade, second grade, and maybe third grade, depending upon the year and the total number of special ed kids in that elementary. Right now, Kelly, her roster is really an overload. We do have a need for another early special ed teacher, and kind of held off the last year or two. But we feel this is the time to make that change. Our special ed numbers are not decreasing. If anything, we're adding special ed kids at an earlier age, where in the past, students have usually been staffed into special ed starting in second or third grade. Kids are coming to us in preschool on IEPs as young as 3 years of age at a greater rate than they have in the past. And they are continuing with those services through kindergarten and first grade. There is definitely a need for an additional special ed teacher at the elementary level.
And that's supported by our rubric points.
Yeah, the special ed delivery plan, yes.
Discussion, questions? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve that transfer. So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve Kelly Weiler's transfer request as listed along with the schedule developed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving on to item 2, we have the second reading of the changes to the meal charges policy, 710.04.
Yep, so we had the first reading last month. Again, this comes out of our visit in the end of November, beginning of December. And we had a meal policy that we weren't really following. If implemented, parents will be notified when they are at kind of the $10 threshold with an email from GMC, followed up with another automated email at negative $20, and then a phone call from either Rhonda in the elementary, Leah in the secondary, if they get to that negative $50. Now, for families that have 3-4 kids eating every day, you can go pretty quickly from $10 positive to negative $50. So we know not every family that gets to negative $50 is in financial hardship. It just goes quickly. So a phone call will happen at negative $50. We'll also kind of refer that to each building's at-risk team. So that's principal, counselor, Jeff Jager, and then either a classroom teacher, if it's in the elementary, or maybe an advisor in the secondary. They would meet and say, okay, is there something going on with this family that we need to dig into and reach out, or is it just a reminder? And then based upon that at-risk committee's conversation, then we would reach back out to the family and say, please, send a check with your kids or pay online, or do you need some help? Something changed that we can help with. And we do have a donations account that our community has provided to help families in need. And if we need to do that and support them, then we will. But then the next threshold is that negative $100 mark. If a family gets to negative $100, we say we may at that point provide an alternative lunch. We don't have to in every situation. In my 4 years at Central Lyon, we've never given a student an alternative lunch, but the policy says may, and we can do that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, this one's been in front of us before. Any questions? Entertain a motion to approve that second reading.
Make a motion to approve second reading of that policy.
We have a motion and second to approve the second reading of policy 710.04 meal charges. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we are on to new business. Item number 1, consider approval of the fiscal year 24 budget.
I think you skipped one, Andy. I think you
Did I skip one?
skipped the consider save bond.
It's just still tabled, so.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
never
yep.
mind.
Do we
sorry.
need to do anything more with it?
I don't think
Stays tabled.
it's tabled
Yep.
unless you guys want to pull it off the table.
Thanks for keeping me on.
Yep,
that.
sorry.
It's all right. Okay, so budget, Mr. Jorth.
I'm just gonna let Jackie talk about her memo. And then if Dave, as a finance committee member, you want to weigh in on anything from our conversation last week, but Jackie?
The budget hearing information is listed there before you in the quick summary abstract. The state granted 3% allowable growth. Remember that this budget that we speak of and approve is really just a tool to satisfy governmental compliance issues and to request permission to tax. So the controllable factors are listed there. Earlier this year, I believe we did it in January, you approved your supplemental amount for dropout prevention. That is all local tax. We fund our Jeff Jagger, our liaison position. We fund our credit recovery. We fund our Success Center, the overspend of Title I, summer school, after-school program, a variety of things come out of our dropout prevention dollars. The instructional support income surtax rate, we've had that as high as 8, 9, 10% in the past. And we chose to, as a committee, drop that down to 4% to sort of keep our tax rate. We're lowering our tax rate a few cents, but we don't want to get to a place where we don't have the ability to tax either. So we kind of have to be careful in how we do that surtax rate. So the instructional support income surtax rate is the option to tax those that only have income and do not own property within the district. So that's what a surtax rate is. So everyone who has income tax will pay that 4% for that. Cash reserve levy is a combination of our fund balance in relation to our expenditures. Because of ESSER dollars and other categorical options and I would just say,
Funds.
yeah, good spending, we do not have the option to reserve any cash reserve, any additional cash this year. So that's a state foundation formula that I don't have a choice on. So basically just means that our fund balance is good. We don't need to levy any cash at this point. They keep people from levying too much or hoarding cash. So we are at 0, and I have a feeling that we will be at 0 again probably next year, just because we're still spending down those ESSER dollars. Management levy in the amount of $250,000. I presented a forecast to the finance committee to let them know kind of where our management fund is sitting, and with the levy of $250,000, we're good for at least another 2-3 years at that rate. And then after that, we might need to levy just a little bit more to fund any potential early retirements or our insurance package for commercial and liability. And then our other fund levies are ones that the community has voted on. That would be our PEPL and our PEARL. Those are statutory, the $1 or the 33 cents and the 67-cent PEPL. And then the PEARL is a 13.5-cent levy. And those are the dollar amounts associated with that. So the current tax rate for this year was $11.30. And I'm proposing a tax rate of right under $11, $10.98. I had to publish in the reporter, which we did, according to the guidelines, and I need to certify this. So I'm asking for your approval as the board to request a $10.98,969 tax rate for the 23-24 school year. And I'll answer any questions if you have them. The budget presentation attached gives you just 7 pages of detail of how we use those dollars. So if anybody needs a little nightly reading, it's helpful. It gives you a lot of good information. 7 pages.
I know it's not included here. It's included in the public hearing, but my favorite.
Oh, the presentation,
graphic is back, so.
the presentation.
But that's helpful in showing the public.
Yeah.
that, Okay, this is where, number one, school finance is complicated, but number two, here's where the tax dollars.
Yeah, what each individual fund can be used for under the law, yep, and how many dollars. Obviously, the update that I provided has $0 in any of the funds because it's for, July 1st, but I'll update that as we get closer to that, so. It's complicated, yet not a whole lot of control over it, so hopefully that makes sense.
What we have controlled, like Jackie said, and the reason, since I've been here, that our tax rate has went down is really cash reserve levy. As the ESSER dollars have come in because of COVID, our cash has really risen and our fund balance has grown, knowing that that is gonna run out in the next year. Probably have another year, see where we're at this time next year, but that tax rate for the first time since forever is under $11, when it's been historically in the mid-13s. So while your property assessments have went up over time, the school has worked hard to cut our tax ask. So even though you still might be paying more quote-unquote dollars, we've done everything that we legitimately can do to control our ask when it comes to local property tax that you guys get to control, as opposed to the state foundation aid.
Yep, and one other thing that you've done as a board is we've done sales tax revenue bonds to do our building projects instead of going out for a tax levied bond, so that helps as well. I ask for recommendation to approve the $10.98 tax rate, 23-24 school year.
Brent, did the Pearl levy conversation?
It's still conversation's still being had. It's appropriation bill, so it can be discussed, reintroduced, can be dead and raised from, like Lazarus, from the dead at any point. So
We
it's never safe.
emailed and begged and borrowed and pleaded to leave it alone, and I did get responses back to say thank you for your input, but
Surprisingly, I did not.
they like me.
Yes. If it should be on the debate schedule, we will continue to advocate, because as you can see there, $45,000 is what we have been basically saving to do our playground projects. And in the past, it allowed us to resurface the track. Annually, it's what we use when we go bowling, all the fees down for bowling, or the resurfacing of the gym, or improvements to the auditorium, to the tune of about $500,000 since 2008,
Yep.
2007.
Initially, we used that to, resurface do our whole track, if you remember that.
Yep.
And then we kind of just built it back up and we used it for those playgrounds. And then, right now we have about $103,000, which we were setting aside to help with our future playground improvements. And then we'll build it back up and have another project, so. But the annual things, it will make a huge difference. That will have to then come out of another fund.
It's one of the few things that truly is local control. We ask our voters to approve it or not approve it. And they have approved it fairly overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Up until now.
Yep.
Or up, including now.
Yep.
And that was 2 or 3 years ago, the last.
Nope. Pearl was actually a one-time majority, simple majority, and then it stays in until we no longer ask it. So each year we could do a 0. Our tax rate has allowed us to keep it in, so we've asked for it every year since its inception, which was in 2000 and, what did we say, 9, 8?
Something.
So
15 years ago.
when we initially presented it, and when we presented it, Mr. Ackerman at the time presented it in language to the public to say, these are the things we're going to use it for, to keep our current facilities, exterior facilities that the community uses, up to date. So it was a very easy thing for the community to get behind. So
Well, and that's just it, it's not just for the school, it's for the community, it's, you know,
Exactly.
playground out here is open all year round.
The track.
Use it, the track.
Our stage, our gym floors, they are used by the community over and over and over again, so, yep.
So
So,
we made the donation to the Kiwanis
Yep.
Park at the ball fields from Pearl. And you're exactly right. That was my message to Skylar Wheeler and Jeff Taylor was our community benefits from this levy. And if we take that away, $45,000, we're not gonna be able to make those annual improvements and do some neat things that the kids, community are gonna be able to benefit.
That our community approved us doing.
yes. Yep, and that was exactly our point in the email. This is local decision, local control, so let us have it.
So do you need a resolution or is it a regular motion?
Just a regular motion that you agree as a 4-member board to proceed with levying that tax rate for the next year.
Make a motion to approve the levy rate of 10.98969 for the 23-24.
I'll second.
A motion and second to approve the tax rate as recommended by Jackie. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Amen to local control. Item 2, consider resolution for affirming at-large director districts.
That was what our second hearing was in regards. The packet, again, has the same worksheets, the map. We're maintaining, or our recommendation is to maintain the 5 directors with all of them being at large. Same as it's been for quite a while. Talking to Mr. Bresky, this was changed back in the 80s. And really came out of the fact that when they had director districts, it was difficult to get people living in each district to run for a school board. So at large means come from anywhere within the boundaries.
I think it'd be easier to entertain 7 folks if we thought interest every election, every open school board seat, but that has not been the case.
Right.
So, yeah. 5.
So this is the resolution that's in the content. You don't have to repeat it, but I will ask for a roll call. Make a motion.
Get a motion in a second. Jackie, roll call.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to continue with 5 at-large director districts.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the resolution to continue with 5 at-large director districts and affirm our boundaries, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Uh,
roll call, Jackie.
Jans?
Aye.
Postma?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
Who?
Okay. Moving on to item 3, consider approval of 23-24 school. So we've had some discussion about that. Some questions from to the calendar committee and to Mr. Forth. I guess the first question I'll ask to the rest of the board is, how do we feel about the 2 makeup days being waived? There's a couple different options here. Mr. Jorth, are we under any time constraints to approve the calendar?
The sooner we approve it, the sooner we communicate it to families. That's the only thing I would ask the board to remember and consider. We are later than we've ever been, simply because of all the changes we've made to our present calendar and adjustments. Usually we approve the calendar in January. So we're just, by having the conversation, I think our community members understand the debate. In reality, Family Week is not going to move from where it's at right now. Family Week's going to stay the way it is. We're really talking about, as you've mentioned, the makeup days.
So teachers' contracts are 191.5
Got it, yep.
Okay.
And so, again, this year, because of the extreme weather, we went to flexible PD, where that's the first time we've ever used that. Staff could log their hours for a contract day. Otherwise, in my 3 previous years, excluding COVID, we've been in person for all 191 and a half days.
So explain to me, can we not just change the language and say that we're not gonna day 1 and 2, but we forgive day 7 and 8?
Yeah, it would be like e-learning days, and then we would
Which
get,
basically are, would that change the calendar the way it is set up here?
I would just update it based upon whatever you guys want to do.
But whether it's a day 1 or 2
Correct.
or 2nd and 8, it's the same.
So I have maybe a dumb question, but, so if students just have to go, you said 1,080, right?
Yep.
So why do we, if we go by hours, why do we put so many additional hours in the student schedule?
It's equal to 180 school days, which traditionally was the requirement. And so, again, in that old counting of days, you can count your parent-teacher conferences because they equate to a similar day.
Okay.
Each fall is one, and the spring is the second. So if we were to count those as quote-unquote days, we'd still be at 180 student days, even though this says 178.
But we don't have to meet the 180, like, we don't have to meet both, or we do?
We approve an hours-based calendar, so
Yep.
it gives us and the board flexibility to do the things like we did this year. If we approved a days-based, it would be 180 days.
Yep.
And we would have to make up every single day in person. Unless the law is passed and they say you can use e-learning, which it looks like it's gonna do, and you could only do that for 5 of those days.
And that law was changed from 180 days to hours, something like 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And each school had to make a choice. Do you want to be a day school or do you want to be an hour school? We chose hours.
I'm just thinking if we're like planning snow days and now, then why don't we just end the school year sooner and then the days can just be after that and we'd still be done.
And that's what we've not traditionally, when the time came for us to consider waiving 2 days, that's what we did, because we had already met
Right.
that 1080 requirement. But I think that going above the hours is, I would say the mantra at Central Line is we just don't do the bare minimum,
Right.
right? So, but you're absolutely correct. If you
And I'm not
want
saying we have to do the minimum, but obviously we're.
Yeah.
12 days over, and then we're planning on all these makeup days, so.
Yeah.
Just-
What's the impact to the schedule? If, I think we're talking about not waiving those 2 days, but we still want staff to be done on the 24th. Right? Or
I don't know, is that what you guys are saying? Is you want staff done, or you want staff to come back after Memorial Day for that?
I don't think anybody
I don't
wants
think
that. So my question is, if we say, okay, makeup day number 1 is now gonna be school day number 1. So you
Yep.
parse that all the way down and we're to no school day number 12 plus, then the board consider options.
Correct.
What does that do to the schedule?
Well, our first makeup day for kids then would be,
Yeah.
I would say would be the 24th of May.
The first makeup day will be December 22nd.
Sure. If that's what you guys want to do.
Yeah, I
If it's
I think
before,
we want
if
to keep the built
if
in.
it's before Christmas, again, if it first, our
Right.
first no school
Right.
day is
Right.
until January,
Yeah.
it would be the first one available, is what you guys are saying.
Sure.
We're gonna make it up immediately.
I
And then
think,
we're gonna make the next one up immediately. And then whenever we run out of those makeup days, we're gonna go right into e-learning days. Right?
right, yeah, like it shows here.
Yep. So we're not gonna forgive any days. We're not gonna go to flexible PD until we've exhausted our e-learning days, correct?
Yeah, that's the question. Is
I
it-
mean, the only time you go to flexible PD is if you're forgiving student days, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
that's, yes, that would be.
I can make that notation on the bottom left there.
I think PD is great. We're doing a whole lot more than we've done. We had, since Mr. Dorothy came and we implemented that, we're doing a whole lot more probably than we had.
With
in
the teacher
past.
collaboration on
Yeah,
Wednesdays.
even if we get rid of those 2 days. So I think my constraints are, I guess, is, if I'm hearing everybody right, is don't waive the 2 days, but we don't want to come back. Is that right?
Right, start making up those days as soon as we
Yep.
can, based on the built-in days in the calendar. If the first one is, the middle of February, okay, then when's the first one after that can be made up?
So that should not impact staff. Is that fair?
Until it would be number 12 and beyond. Yep. We want to get kids and staff out of here by the Friday before Memorial Day. Just kind of massage the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah. And that's gonna have to be flexible as you go through the school year.
Yep, if we get to 12, we're going to have to get creative again.
How many
Does that
days off
make
did we
sense?
have The first thing.
The only
Do you know how many we had?
Is like he was saying earlier, is that Friday then would be the teacher checkup day. So you're saying if you're not gonna forgive any of those days, then we're not gonna get a checkout day?
So when does that move to after?
Well, they would have to check out the same day or the week of. You know what I'm saying? So it really comes into effect for our elementary teachers, right? Because they're packing up their room. They're gonna have kids in their room until the 24th. And so they're gonna be coming back after Memorial Day anyways. We're just not gonna compensate them for their time.
How long does it take?
Oh, yeah, because everything you see in a classroom all gets
Just
put up.
now?
Doesn't come down to an hour.
Go out to the classroom. I mean, even to prepare the room, at the beginning of the year, it takes days
So I
to prepare it.
I
So
just feel like if there was at least one day where teachers would be like, okay, we at least see that there's one day. Otherwise, I have a feeling that whole week, people are just gonna be freaking out and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Which goes to your previous. Good class teaching.
Right, you're always gonna have higher quality education earlier in the school year that is, versus education after the Memorial Day, or even late May.
Change than what I'm hearing is, and not forgive those first 2 days. Really, if those teachers come back.
Not necessarily, only if we have more than X number of snow days.
How many so
Yeah,
have
just
we
kinda-
had historically? Yes, that,
Depends, yeah.
well, I don't depend on you.
I don't have
It's
it.
been a minimum of 4 since I've been here, because we've always went to the Friday every year since I've been here.
In the last 2 years, we've had multiple
Right.
state-related
State.
playoff days.
Yeah.
Will we have that tradition continue? I don't know. Hope so.
So,
Also,
I think this gives you more flexibility to do more of it. Give them more days later in the calendar year too, if you've already made them up earlier in the school year. Does that make sense?
yeah, I think like Melissa's saying though, if we are reserving 1 day for teachers, that gives them 1 day to pack up their room, check out with their teacher or with their principal.
So like for instance, if you forgave like the first snow day instead of 2 snow days, teachers would come in that Friday then, and they would get that day to pack up their room. So if you're forgiving like that one snow day, that would be beneficial to teachers, is what we're saying.
But that's speculative based on how many snow days we have. If we have 15 snow days, you're gonna be here the week after Memorial Day anyway. me, it's a wait and see what happens throughout the school year. And if we get to a point of saying, board, can we forgive 2 days at the end of the school year? I would much rather do that than automatically forgive those 2 days.
Was this in the calendar last year?
No, because calendar we built since I've been here, always said the first 2 days, we were gonna turn into staff PD days. Because we were coming back after Memorial Day anyways, and we said we wanted to have at least 3 days of instruction after Memorial Day. Otherwise, let's just let families start their summer, have teachers come back for PD and check out. So that's how we built it since I've been here. And yeah, it's the calendar that I had my first year was built that way. Right to the Friday before Memorial Day, and then we were gonna start making them up after Memorial Day.
It comes back to that tricky subject of, we can always waive makeup days for students to get us back to 1080 in theory, right? Just a lot of days. But that doesn't do anything for staff, which is what we've kind of run into in the past where we've had to do a bunch of PD where we've had to make it meaningful, right?
But if we waived, for example, at the end of the year, I mean, if we waived the last day of school, moved it a day sooner and said, that's just a staff day instead of I mean, that would help. If we're not forgiving the first couple days, then we get toward the end of the year and we realize it's gonna land on a Monday, we can say, we've met our hours by, 60 hours or whatever.
Right.
Like, we have enough, so we're willing to waive the last,
That's what I think.
right, you can waive it off the end instead of from the beginning. I mean, it's kind of like what we're doing this year by saying June 2nd is the last day of school, no matter what, and we're making adjustments so that that stays the same.
That's why staff are coming back for 2 in-person days on June 5th and June 6th. Kids are done on the 2nd. And we've given 2 flexible PD days so that staff don't have to stay the 7th, the 8th as well.
You want to go back and redo the calendar based on that? Or just, do we have enough information now to say, we start making up days as soon as they occur?
Well, that's where I was leading with my initial question to Mr. Jorworth, is to keep this a collaborative process. My preference would be to kick it back to staff and in the calendar committee with the constraints that we just put on. We don't want you to be in school after the 24th either. But we want to wait the first 2 days, see what you can do, rather than us trying to massage. And right now I just see numbers floating all over here. How to handle that, but you prefer to get it out sooner.
It waits till May, Unless you guys want to have a special meeting just to approve a calendar, we can do a Zoom meeting. But I would say the personnel committee, whenever we meet, maybe Melissa, Lenny, Jessica, kind of a subcommittee of the calendar committee, we can get in a room together and talk about it as a team.
Does that sound fair? Okay. So I think if that's the case, if everybody's okay with that. Motion to table it.
I will make a motion to table the calendar for next school year, 23-24.
I'll second.
Motion and second to table the calendar discussion or calendar approval for next year. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 4, consider a resolution for public hearing for the sale of the industrial tech house.
So our May meeting is the 8th. 1st of May is a Monday. And so our May meeting we're following our regular schedule, would be the 8th. As I look at the calendar for all of our events for the month of May, the 16th is really the only day the month of May that we don't have things going on. So that's how I came to the May 16th recommendation. If you want to put it prior to our regular meeting, happy to do that. And then the dollar amount, like I referenced when it was in my report section, 129.5, hopefully gets people interested in following through with making a bid, showing up at the auction. So I'm really Switzerland on both of these things. You guys can tell me what you're gonna do.
Are you gonna keep your board meeting on the 8th? Then? Or are you moving your board meeting to the same?
I would keep the board meeting, our regular board meeting on the 8th. This would be our only thing, would be a public hearing.
I just want you to look at what's going on that.
What is going on that night?
Is it another home track
On
meeting
the
on the 8th?
No.
And here's 16th is the only thing, we don't have anything going on. So we got track at West Lyon on the 8th. Girls golf at Sheldon, boys golf at Oakville. Following Monday is our first set of baseball games. And then our boys district golf, hopefully. We're playing that 15th. And then if you wanted to move your regular meeting to the 16th, you're welcome to do that as well. You guys can meet anytime you want to.
What's the reasoning behind your pushing that public hearing for the auction? Is that just more time?
There's no conflicts on the 16th. So
Get more, as many bidders as we can.
get as many bidders, remove any.
Fewer reasons for people not to show.
Correct. I mean, again, looking at month of May, other than the 31st, that's the only date, there's no school events. Now, plenty of people that we're talking to don't necessarily have high school kids or middle school kids, but that's why I put it on this. I came to my recommendation on the 16th. Well, it can be anytime you guys want to. It can be in June. If you want to wait till June.
What's everybody feel about meeting? Not having a public hearing.
So moving the public hearing up to an earlier time, you're saying?
Still be
Oh, okay.
6:45
Still
and then have a regular board meeting at 7.
At 7.
16. Okay with you, Scott? Okay. Another resolution, you need a second roll call again.
So the sample resolution is right here. So Jackie will fill in Tuesday, May 16th, 6:45. And then we need to talk about, what do you want the minimum bid to be? Good with 129.5? Do you want to cover your costs and do 132 even? Do you want to do something less, something more?
131 and change, is that what we're in for?
131, 433, I think is the exact number.
I don't have a problem with 129, I don't have a problem with 131.
I don't have a problem with what it's at either. I mean, obviously, if we have multiple bidders, it will.
Paying
Go up
99 cents
from
for a candy bar instead of $1.
Yeah.
Everybody else okay with that then? Okay, we'll go with your recommendation there.
I just need another roll call, a motion and a second.
Okay.
And then a roll call.
You want a motion for the price or for the date and time?
Just to approve the resolution setting the auction for Tuesday, May 16th at 6:45 and a minimum bid of 129.5.
I will make a motion to approve the recommendation, the resolution for the public hearing at 6:45 on May 16th, with the minimum bid be 129.5.
Second.
Call Jackie.
Jans.
Aye.
Postma.
Aye.
Harder.
Aye.
Cool.
Okay, move on to item number 5. Consider memo of understanding with Northwest Iowa Community College for the NCC College and Career Academy in Sioux Center.
So this is one of those things in the DCAP that Mr. Engelman talked about. This is a brand new program that NCC, and it came on really quickly. Honestly, I learned about it by reading the review 3 weeks ago. Sent a message to Dr. Hartog at NCC and said, hey, can we be a part of this? There's no minimum expense for us. It's just like another dual credit option for kids. The difference is instead of taking classes online, kids would be going to Sioux Center and they would have, they can take classes in 4 different strands: welding, education, health careers, and what was the other one?
Engineering design.
So again, career academies, I'm familiar with those. When I was at Webster City, we sent a busload of kids to Eagle Grove, similar type of 4 programs. The building is going to be the old AA building in Sioux Center. That's where professors from NCC will be at. It's also right next door to Link Manufacturing. That's where the welding program will happen. So really, that's the one program that I'm most interested in. Mrs. Wright teaches the intro education class here. We've got the partnership with the hospital. So the health careers and the education strand isn't as enticing as the welding program. We've had some students that we built our own kind of work-based learning where kids go to someplace in town or in Dune to job shadow, work study. But this is actually NCC's welding program with NCC's instructors in Link Manufacturing. So they would take the coursework, they would get the real work experience at Link, and they would get high school and college credit. I don't know if we'd have 1 kid or 10 kids that would want to be a part of it. All we're agreeing is saying this is something that we want to have as an option for kids. And then Mrs. Harmon, Mr. Engelman could start talking about it.
So this can take the place of some credits, more regular high school credits, substitute that.
So they'd be like their electives. So this career academy is going to be in the morning. So it'd be like our first 2 periods of the day, kids would physically be in Sioux Center, taking a welding class through NCC and getting real work experience. And then they would come back to us and be in our building probably for 4th hour, because the 3rd period of the day would be travel from Sioux Center back to Rock Rapids. And then they would be with us, and their focus would be their core classes when they're here: math, English, science, social studies, PE.
Do the classes line up so that they'd be able to do that?
Yep, that's how
The core classes are in the 4 through 8.
Yep.
Do that?
the things that kids would be sacrificing would be band, choir. And so those are the difficult conversations. So most likely, kids that are really passionate about fine arts aren't going to be involved in the Career Academy. But again, I think about really our students that take a class with Mr. Rockhill for welding, really like it, or do a similar type of class with Mr. Engel. And the welding option that this is going to be is, you go down there 2 years in a row, you're going to come out with the welding certificate even before you finish high school. And again, I think it's just it's another option for us and our kids.
Transportation is up to the student.
That's what we would have to work out with the details. Again, if we're talking about 1 or 2 kids, It's different than if it's 10 or more kids and it's feasible for us to transport the kids.
So the cost for us would be just,
Just like any other dual credit class that our kids take, most of our kids take online classes. And then ultimately, if we're providing transportation, that's where the biggest cost is going to come into us. And that fee structure's on the back. Every August, we approve dual credit. Again, those are traditionally only been the academic dual credit classes. This is more of a work-based experience. And as it says there, it's listed in there, kids that want to get the CNA and they want to do it in person, this is an option instead of doing it online. Or the EMT certification. My hope would be, our partnership with Avera, the fact that Sarah DeVries coming on board has her master's, we're going to be able to offer all of those programs because of being a part of the Career Academy. We can start to then offer those dual credit classes for kids here in Rock Rapids instead of just being in Sioux Center.
So it's a 10-year agreement here, right?
Correct. There's no minimum number of seats that we're committing to, though.
So even if it gets 0 interest from here on out. Okay.
It's just an option
Yep.
for kids.
But there is a cap on how many can participate.
Correct. Yep. And since we weren't a part of the original invitation, our numbers are going to be dictated by the participation from Sioux Center, Boyden Hall, West Sioux, the Sioux County schools.
More questions for Mr. Jordan? Discussion, thoughts? So entertain a motion to approve that memorandum of understanding when you're ready.
We'll make a motion to approve the memo of understanding with NCC.
Second. A motion and second to approve the memo of understanding as recommended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And on to item 6, consider math curriculum purchases.
So again, the only one for you tonight is the PD with illustrative math. Allows us to book and get on their calendar for June 5 and 6. And then in May, we'll bring back the final quote and recommendation for the materials online access for both illustrative math and SOPIS.
Any more discussion on that one? Entertain a motion to approve the, how do you want this one, Mr. Jordan?
Just professional.
Professional
Is
reading
agreed.
and illustrative math. Grades TK through.
So moved. Sounds good.
I'll second.
Motion and second, as Jackie stated. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Okay, item 7, consider Medicaid billing services agreement with Timberline.
Apologize for not getting the recommendation in there, but I think Jackie's got it.
My
as an
memo states
attachment. Yeah. Timberline does our Medicaid billing for our students that qualify. Nurse Brenda actually is the one that kind of manages the paperwork and submits the claims. Better than us having to do it directly ourselves.
You would get.
It's a lot of,
This is for a 3-year agreement.
We've been utilizing them since early 2000s. No, 2000s.
Any questions or discussion? So I entertain a motion to approve that. You ready?
I'll make a motion to approve the Medicaid billing service agreement with Timberland.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the Medicaid billing services agreement with Timberline. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 8, personnel, resignations and hiring listed here. Is anyone opposed to taking those together? Okay, Mr. Dorth will take them together. Run through them.
yeah, chime in if you want. Mr. Harmon, Mrs. Larson, has accepted a position with the AEA. We had transferred her, like Amy found in the minutes, from first grade to preschool. She's accepted a position with the AEA. Mr. Engel is resigning his weight room coordinator position. And then Matt Bixman has already moved on professionally, so. Anything you want to add, Mr. Engel, about the weight room coordinator?
I appreciate Graham's work over the years. He's done a lot of work to build up that program. Workouts in partnership with the but
All 3 are very good employees. Did a nice job for us.
Thank them for their service. Matt Bixman. We already miss him.
Hiring.
Hirings.
You want to do those at the
Yep.
same time?
We'll do them
Okay.
together.
So Garrett Saylor, first grade teacher, currently teaching at Wilton. Also assistant football and assistant boys wrestling coach. Sutton Schlumbum, fourth grade teacher. 2020 graduate, so 3 years she's returning to us. And then Adam Kellenberger, 7th and 8th grade, social studies. Adam's got 20 years of experience in the Sioux Falls Public School system. So, anything else to add on the hirings, gentlemen?
Entertain a motion to approve those when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignations and hirings as listed.
A motion and second to approve the hirings and resignations as listed. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item J, announcements, dates to remember.
So if I heard everybody correctly, we're moving the regular meeting to the 16th.
Yep.
I did print right from the website all the events, and then what I did is I just highlighted our home. Doesn't slow down. If the weather stays nice, there's a lot of events coming up. And, you know, as we look forward to this week, like I kind of referenced, we got the FFA banquet on Saturday. FFA members leave for convention for next week. And then we're off to the races. So the week of, we're moving the board meeting to the 16th. That is senior week. So senior's last day will be the 17th. Commencement will be the following Sunday, the 21st, 3 o'clock. Preschool graduation, Melissa left, but preschool graduation that Friday, the 21st. Or 19th, excuse me, 19th. So I can't call it senior week this year, preschool and graduation week, we'll call it.
Okay, we move on to bill review.
I only have one mark, but you can read. Board president, sign a couple things for me. The rest of it is, you can ignore. right here.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks for hanging with us for a couple hours.
No problem.
No problem.
An update on the track meet there, Mr. Engelmann?
You got a file. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys made it down to the track meet, but first time we used the automated shining system. In order to qualify for Drake, now it has to be automated. You can't just have the old school stopwatch model. We'll do that for our middle school meets.
I was gonna be 80 plus.
I'm working from home. Let's see you when it's 40 degrees out.
Culture total.
Even when it's 80 degrees during the summer because it's cold in my office, I wear layers. So I don't know how else to dress.
This happens a couple times a year. And tonight just happened to be a board meeting night.
Credit card. Did I not stamp it? Oh, I was gonna say, it's only a novel. March is a bit of a busy month.
Dave, would you like to make the motion to adjourn?
I would love to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Thanks, guys.
Adjourn.
Have a good week.
Didn't even steal the pen? That's impressive. It's like mandatory.
I was not expecting the baseball and softball order to come out today. That was shocking to me.